from Bantani Education, and I'm delighted to host this webinar today with some great speakers and some opportunities for you to ask them some questions, and maybe for them to ask you some questions of the audience too. So just a quick introduction to where we are. For those of us joining in Zoom, there is simultaneous translation for Spanish and English. Please choose the language option that you would prefer at the bottom of your screen. Many thanks to the Universidad Católica de Valparaíso for supporting the simultaneous translation into Spanish for this event. They are our partners in Chile. You can also use the chat function in both Zoom and Facebook. In the comments box on either platform, please tell us who you are. Tell us your name and where you're watching us from, where you're participating from, and of course, any questions or comments. And we will try to collect them all up and answer them through the session. Now, why are we here? EntreCompedu is a professional development framework that's been translated into an online training course that's being delivered right now. We have, over the past 2 years, got 8 partners from across Europe in 7 countries that have been working on the design of this framework and this training program and testing this new approach underpinned by EntreComp to training teachers to deliver entrepreneurial education. We're now in our 2nd phase pilot involving teachers from, I think, upwards of about 35 countries, with more waiting to come online. And today is an opportunity to bring people together. And to bring together our supporters and hopefully some future participants as we open up registration from January to add some more people, because we decided to put some more time in to support more trainees, more participants on the course. So welcome. I'd like to introduce you to our guests today, first of all. There are lots of people preparing both with us and also going to be speaking to you today. So first of all, our teachers, our teacher participants that have been through the course, they'll be sharing their stories, their experience at the end. And we have Daniela Shteriova, a primary school teacher from North Macedonia. We have Sonia Botel from Guadalinfo, an organization in Andalusia in Spain. We have Tracy Singleton and Faith Muldoon from Davin Primary School in Wales. Those are our teachers, and they'll be sharing their a little bit of insight into their experience on this entrepreneurial education professional development course. Our teacher educator, the lead author behind EntreCompedu, the framework, is here. Russel Grigg is with us as well. And we have a policymaker working at European level. Olena Bekh is here from the European Training Foundation, thank you. And we have our supporters, our leading supporters. We have Kath Penaluna from University of Wales Trinity St David in Wales, and we have Carolina Silva from the Universidad Católica de Valparaíso in Chile, who is leading the EntreCompedu pilot that's going across Latin America and the Caribbean. There's a lot of countries involved in this, testing it out. So again, if you're following live, please say hello, say where you're calling from. Alex is joining in from France, Montserrat from Spain, Porua is there in Finland. Thank you so much for joining us. But first, our official welcomes from our colleagues. I'd like to ask Kath Penaluna and Carolina Silva to welcome you on behalf of these leading organizations. Firstly, Kath Penaluna is the Enterprise Manager, Enterprise Champion at the University of Wales Trinity St David, and is the lead coordinator of this Erasmus Plus funded project, EntreCompedu. So Kath, can I transfer over to you just to provide some insight into why you got involved?
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, Ellen, and a very warm welcome to everyone to this webinar, and a warm welcome from sunny Wales. We have the sun out with us today. So I'm very proud to lead this project that celebrates, supports, and develops entrepreneurial educators. The pandemic has made us acutely aware of the need for entrepreneurial education, for educators who are entrepreneurial in their practice, in order to respond to the various challenges that we've been facing. And it's therefore no surprise that entrepreneurial education is one of the fastest growing fields of education research. The course is inspired by EntreComp, the European competence framework, made up of the 15 competencies which help us to understand what being entrepreneurial means for teaching and learning. The framework itself is based on phenomenal research, years of research, speaking with various stakeholders to create this framework, an invaluable tool. So EntreCompedu is all about supporting teachers to introduce EntreComp into their teaching. So you can find out more about EntreComp as in the introduction in Module 1, and of course throughout the course discover a lot more. So our work is all about helping teachers and education professionals to see the how to introduce these competencies into teaching and learning. It's the how that people want to know, and it's the how of the practice that we're going to be hearing about today. Once you've started and once you're on the journey and once you've learned, you'll wonder why we haven't been doing this all along. And there's a dedicated team here, so I'm really looking forward to hearing more. So over to Elin to introduce our next guest, and enjoy. That's what entrepreneurial educators do. We love sharing experiences and we enjoy time together. Welcome.
Thanks, Kath. That's great. And we really have benefited from the involvement of the University of Wales Trinity St. David. Now, I'd like to transfer over to Carolina Silva, who is from Chile and saw the opportunity to get involved. Carolina, thank you. Over to you.
Gracias, Elin. Lo siento por hablar en español, no es el mejor momento para poner en práctica mi inglés, que no es perfecto. Estoy muy contenta de estar aquí hoy acompañándolos en este encuentro y representando, tal como dijiste, el quehacer de América Latina. Como universidad venimos promocionando desde hace ya más de 10 años el emprendimiento y la innovación en la comunidad universitaria, principalmente con un fuerte vínculo hacia las necesidades de nuestro territorio, que es la región de Valparaíso. Aún tenemos asuntos pendientes que resolver, por supuesto, sin embargo, dentro de nuestras líneas estratégicas se encuentra la formación emprendedora, y en ese sentido encontramos en ustedes, EntreComp, un socio fundamental para poder potenciar esta área. Creemos en las habilidades emprendedoras no solo para llevar a cabo un proyecto de negocio, sino como algo transversal que no distingue disciplinas y que sin duda puede ser aplicadas también para la vida. Vemos mucho potencial en este primer piloto, donde participarán profesores que llevan años trabajando junto a nuestra incubadora de emprendimiento escolar, fomentando la creatividad en sus alumnos y apoyando el desarrollo de nuevas ideas. Sin duda, este curso les ayudará a seguir potenciando este rol que vemos de liderazgo al interior de sus establecimientos educacionales. Al mismo tiempo también tenemos el honor de contar con estudiantes de posgrados de nuestra universidad, específicamente del área de didáctica, tanto de las ciencias como de la matemática, y en el área de gestión y liderazgo de organizaciones educacionales, así que sin duda creemos que esto será un complemento para su formación profesional. Desde la universidad esperamos seguir fortaleciendo los lazos con Bantani, donde seguro tendremos varios otros puntos de encuentro a futuro para desarrollar otro tipo de iniciativas también. Así que por nuestro lado, Elin, muy agradecidas de la confianza que han depositado en nosotros. Estamos seguros que pronto podemos ver los primeros frutos. Así que gracias.
Thank you very much, Carolina. And we're very happy to welcome the 20 participants that you're supporting and facilitating across Latin America and the Caribbean. So again, we've got some great participation in this. We've got Paloma, who's in Spain, Radmil from North Macedonia, Fran from Belgium, hi there. We've got Hatim from Turkey, and Simon, who's watching from Newcastle in the UK. Hi, Simon. So Tatiana is here from Slovenia, and Francesco is coming in from Italy. There's lots and lots of hellos coming in. I'm not going to be able to say them all, but you are very welcome. We are delighted to have over 50 people watching online just in Zoom. So I'd really like to understand and introduce Olena Bekh. Olena Bekh is from the European Training Foundation, and she's been a great supporter of both EntreComp, but EntreCompedu as well. Olena, you've been involved in the development of entrepreneurial learning for many years. Your background in World Bank, Soros Foundation, now you're working with the European Training Foundation on this new initiative, creating new learning, working across the EU, but also with the European partner countries. So a very broad geographic context. And you've been a very valued advisor for our project since the beginning. As a policymaker working across these regions, why is teaching entrepreneurial competencies, why is EntreComp important in your perspective? Welcome, Olena.
Thank you, Elin. I would like to warmly greet everyone who is connected to this webinar, and also to congratulate your team, everybody who is presenting the work and who is sharing the success of EntreCompedu. Just congratulate you on how far you went in this project. And I remember the first discussions, how to structure it and how to design the framework and how to approach it conceptually. So I think this is one of the toughest areas, because everybody understands that there's so much focus and so many people are watching teachers and are telling them what to do. And everybody understands that the world has changed forever, and that we start applying to teachers the words that come from other sectors, from other spheres of life, like coach, facilitator. And this means that teachers need to be up to this challenge that is put on them. And here it comes that there are different instruments and frameworks and tools. And sometimes these tools look quite heavy or scary. So we need to understand other ways to help teachers really in a shortcut way, to do some fast forward. And I think, to me, the specialized training, specialized support on EntreComp, on entrepreneurship key competence for teachers, is a way to fast forward this support. Because if I ask you a question, actually, not you, Elin, but everybody, are we talking about the key competence of teachers, or are we talking about their occupational or professional competences? What is this that is most challenged by the current circumstances? We understand that the labor market is changing. There is COVID challenge. The lines between formal education and non-formal learning are blurring constantly. We are talking about lifelong learning, so the boundaries are very much unclear now. And we more and more talk about the fact that education, formal education, which is one of the most traditionally most conservative spheres, it's starting to really learn from non-formal and informal learning. And we talk more and more about adult learning. So where is this, the teacher, do we require personal transformation of teachers, or do we require professional training or support? And in this case, I would really put two things separate. I would say that on the one hand, of course, teachers are citizens themselves, and all the competence frameworks are being created to support citizens throughout the life transitions. So teachers need to develop their key competence as human beings throughout their lives, to succeed, to feel successful, to succeed in their careers and also in their personal lives. But at the same time, we want teachers to support the learners to develop their key competences. So without possessing them, they cannot develop them. So one conclusion would be, we need to train teachers, we need to support development of teachers. This same way, we want the teachers to support their learners. So we need to develop the systems which would apply coaching and facilitation to teacher training and to continuous professional development. That's one thing I wanted to emphasize. Another thing is that there is a difference in training teachers in pre-service training and in service or continuous professional development. Because when we support teacher additional qualifications or smaller units of qualifications, like capacity to develop, to support development of key competences of their students, specific EntreComp, DeachComp, or other key competences, personal social learning to learn, etc. But when, so we support this in continuous professional development of teachers in some small scale, maybe shorter courses, providing targeted support. But when we talk about in service, pre-service training, when we prepare teachers for future career, there is a role for qualification systems, and there is a role for qualification standards for teachers. So they need to be developed and become up to the challenges to the modern teaching profession, to make sure that the higher education institutions and other teacher training institutions prepare themselves for these future qualifications of teachers. Maybe a couple of other things I wanted to emphasize. So we are looking at the teachers as teacher development as part of lifelong learning. So in this case, do we want to focus on single training tasks or single modules, or do we want to combine them? And this is where I see great potential, because entrepreneurship key competence of teachers could be developed within different other training courses. So it is very important to make sure that these frameworks like entrecompedu are used to upgrade other teacher training programs. And here also DIGCOM, Digital Competence Framework, also we need to combine, we need to develop comprehensive learning outcomes for teachers that would include these ingredients related to different key competencies. So I would like to say that this is a great challenge, great job, and also they need to really speak the same language, because there are so many efforts of different organizations which are developing courses for life skills, for transversal skills, for soft skills, for different competences. But we need to understand that these efforts have to be seen in a more comprehensive way, and we need to create tools that would be very simple, very easy to apply by teachers, for teachers, and by each of us who is dealing with key competence development. Elin, am I responding to your question, or? Tell me.
You absolutely are. You're responding and going beyond, which is great. Now, I'd like to ask you, perhaps, you said how Ontracom Edu can support this work at European level, and that fit, you've highlighted the importance of, right now we're looking primarily at in-service teacher training. We're working with educators, but also education professionals from across different sectors. Later today, we'll have a colleague from Guadalinfo, which is, a supporting organization based in Andalusia, which is looking at community-based education. So we can look at the broad-natured relevance of both these teacher competencies and this approach to learning for learners in different lifelong learning settings. How many learning can you get into one sentence? But I'd like to understand, perhaps, your work. It gives you an overview of many initiatives happening at European level, but I'm interested to hear, you've mentioned a few of them. How does this work fit with your role within CNL, within the Creating New Learning initiative? Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and perhaps, highlight some links there?
Yeah, actually, I don't know how much the participants of this webinar know about the European Training Foundation. Just one word. We are the EU agency. We are located in Turin in Italy. And our task is to develop human capital, and we support the countries which are surrounding the European Union, which are partners of the European Union, with which the European Union has instruments of cooperation. And these are 29 partner countries, spanning across 4 regions. And we are working on different areas, including key competence development, applying the tools and frameworks for supporting the reform of education systems in these countries. And also, we are looking into the ways to enhance overall approaches to learning and to teaching and to support innovation. And so from this year, we launched the preparation of the new initiative, which formally starts next year. I'm a coordinator of this initiative, which is called Creating New Learning. Elin mentioned this already before. We call it CNL in the short terms. And this initiative is looking at the way how the learning is changing. And yes, indeed, we fit the word learning so many times in one sentence, because I would really stick to learning rather than education. Because for learning, learning is more comprehensive. It covers all spheres of our life. And then, of course, learning takes place in formal education systems. So we would like to support the tools and methods of that would be innovative in different national contexts. depending on what are the specific challenges of different countries. So it's both related to teachers, to pedagogy, to personalized learning, which is now a big emphasis in our work. It's related to the studying the learning environments where learning is taking place, and also looking at different contexts and looking at blended forms of learning, in particular, hybrid learning. Then we are also looking at the curricula development, future-proof curricula, key competence development as part of it, digital and online learning, and of course the teachers, the educators, and their qualifications and the new roles of teachers. So this is a big scope of this work. And we were conducting this year a big literature review in these 5 areas that I mentioned. And we just completed this work, which helped us to select some areas in which we will be supporting innovation in teaching and learning in the next period, within ETF and within the specific initiative of creating new learning. One of the sub-projects of this initiative that also Elin was collaborating with us on, and also we conducted already several Facebook Live sessions. This was the teacher booster videos creation, which is also, we were looking at practice of teaching and also trying to make visible the personal stories of innovative teachers and educators, those who support education innovation, in order to share this approach. Do like me, do better than me, don't be hesitant, here's your motivation, and this is how you can do it. A couple of highlights from our research, maybe just to mention. Within the focus of new learning for the next phase, we will be looking at aspects like learner agency, autonomy, and self-directedness of learning, which becomes more and more important. And it's also related to the learner motivation, to the development of learning pathways. So we need to develop the competences that support learners in managing their life transitions, in directing their learning. Very close to this point is the issue of the role of assessments. And so here we go back to the teacher's role. If the teacher is a facilitator and the coach, then the teacher has to learn how to provide constructive feedback, how to make learning assessment as learning, so that we would really make sure that this assessment supports learning, not so much is the punishment at the end for what you have memorized or not. Another thing which is really visible in our research is team collaboration, collaborative learning, co-creation of knowledge, and also the different types of collaboration, peer collaboration between teachers, and also collaboration between learners in the process of learning. Again, many times repeating the word learning. The learning culture, very important, the making learning visible. This is Elin's favorite point, I think, from what I remember from our work together. And also work-based learning, authentic learning, and project-based learning. These are the aspects of innovation in teaching and learning that become really critical. And more we focus on authentic learning, creating conditions when learning is linked to practice and not so much theoretical. So maybe, Elin, I think that would be something I wanted to mention. Maybe just one thing, I wanted to highlight that there were recent documents from the EU policy level, and they were really providing support to what you are doing and what we are all doing. It's the, for example, just to mention the Osnabrück Declaration that was approved on the 30th of November and was calling for resilience, for excellence through quality, inclusive and flexible education, also new lifelong learning culture, big emphasis on green and digitalization, and also, for example, the Council conclusions on European teachers and trainers for the future. Huge emphasis on developing the competences of teachers and trainers, expertise, encouraging of autonomy of teachers, their engagement, motivation, feeling of value, proactive and innovative work of teachers, and also making sure you would find there very important emphasis on competence frameworks for teachers. So it's also related to global ones, national ones, national, local, different types of frameworks. But my last point on the frameworks, let's be really reasonable, because it's very easy to use the frameworks to support standardization of learning. Very easy. So we need to see the frameworks as an instrument that supports us, that guides us. It's like the moving target for us, for remembering what we need to focus on, for motivating us, but not using the frameworks for really measuring how much we achieve, because achievement has to be a constant process throughout lifelong learning, and has to support motivation, not judgment on how much we succeed, let's say.
Thank you very much, Olena. Now, some questions are coming in. So to follow up on what you've said, maybe I can ask a question from Vizam Shamruk, who's on the course right now. He says, successful teacher development, offering EntreComp. Do you consider more training and assistance to these teachers about competency assessment and teaching EntreComp in multidisciplinary contexts? There's two key words there, assessment and multidisciplinary contexts. Can you share anything on your insights on those two areas?
So I understand the question. It's not an alternative, no? These are two different aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that multidisciplinary, we have an experience of applying the frameworks in these contexts, and it's a very rigorous work. This is where I would say that having 500 learning outcomes in the framework is a benefit for those who design education standards. And so I would say that multidisciplinary contexts require multidisciplinary approaches. So I'm not very orthodox in saying that there is only one way. I think we should be very flexible. Sometimes we use these frameworks to upgrade the learning programs that already exist, just to make them more learning outcome oriented, more key competence oriented. And it's sometimes not so much changing the content, but changing the way we work with the curricula, changing the way the teacher approaches it, bringing more action, bringing more practice, bringing more comprehensive view on learning outcomes that support different key competencies. So multidisciplinary approach is the best one that I see. I'm very much for integrated learning outcomes. I'm very much for collaboration between teachers of different subject areas, different disciplines, in agreeing how they jointly divide the work and how they support the development of key competencies in a more comprehensive way. Coming back to the assessment, I think that assessment, there is a famous saying that we learn what we assess, of course, but I think it's helping the learners to use self-assessment in the best way, to be conscious in their learning. Of course, we need to have the tools and methods to capture the changes of learning outcomes that are related to key competencies. We are developing them, we are all working on them, but again, this has to be used for growth and for self-motivation, for self-development. And just one example, key competencies, many aspects of key competencies are only developed and assessed in a team, in collaboration. So one of the ways to assess key competencies through self-assessment and through teacher feedback would be to look at collaboration and co-creation by the teams, and assess and self-assess in teams. So it becomes multidimensional as well. I hope I responded.
I think so. That was from a question from Vizam in Palestine. He says, thanks a lot. So I think you did. Okay. We also have a question from Mustafa, who I think is in Canada. What's the role of project-based learning in entrepreneurial education that you feel supports teachers to help deliver these entrepreneurial competencies?
Fantastic question. Project-based learning is one of the best tools for key competence development, and also one of the very, very highly valued basis for the new curricula. So project in broad sense is very related to the concept of enterprise in a broad sense. This non-business enterprise as an action, collective action that allows a team to develop idea, to find opportunities, EntreComp, hello, to find opportunities, to learn how to deal with risks, to develop new ideas, to be creative, to collaborate, to find resources, and to apply them for action. So these all competences are part of entrepreneurship key competences. So project-based learning is one of the very good ways to learn by doing. And also project-based learning allows you to focus on something which we have not mentioned yet, the value creation. Yes, hello, Elin. So value creation. And this means that project teams of learners go outside of the classroom. They connect with the outside world. They connect with the local community. They can learn how to be useful, how to create value for the others, while learning how to develop their own projects. So I would say that it's not only a thing that we would advise to do, but this is one of the core activities if we develop new curricula.
Thank you so much. That's really, really informative answer. Now, we've got even more questions coming through for you, but I'm going to have to hold on those and we'll try and catch up with them later because it's time to move on. But before I go, I'd just like to just give some shout outs. We've got Francois, who's here from European Schools in Belgium, and we've got other colleagues here from many different countries. Marianella from Spain. Hi, Marianella. And also, yes, Mustafa from Canada, Teodoro from Spain. Lovely to see you. Trace from Macedonia. Now, I'd like to highlight all of the links that Olena has mentioned, all the little things that Olena has mentioned. We've put links into the chat so you can see those there. And I'd like to particularly welcome Cornelia Lohinova, who is with us as well, because she's actually one of our filmies. It's one of our expert teachers who features in the Teacher Booster project, a series of short films that Olena has mentioned, and the link to those is also in the chat. So welcome, Cornelia. Thanks for joining us. So I'd now like to say thank you to Olena. We may come back to you at the end for additional questions, but we will now move on to our teacher educator. Russel Grigg is with us. He has supported this work through his collaboration with Bantani Education. He's now an education inspector in the UAE and is a previous professor of teacher education at University of Wales Trinity. So Russel is the lead author, the driving force behind the EntreCompedu framework and translating that into the training experience that our learners are having right now, working with all of our partners to achieve that. And we'll try and mention some of those partners and how they're contributing as well throughout the webinar. So over to you, Russel, to share perhaps a bit of deeper insight into the development of the EntreCompedu framework and the training course. Now you're on mute now, so maybe you can unmute yourself.
I can. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. You can also share your screen directly from your computer.
Okay, which I'm trying to do, and it says open system preferences. So I'm not sure whether there's a problem there or not.
I think that means that you haven't got access to share your screen via Zoom in that computer.
Okay.
It's a system thing. So perhaps what I can do is share my screen, and I've got your PowerPoint here, but you'll need to tell me when to click through. So one moment, and I'll just get that up. We've always got a solution to a technical issue, but there's always a technical issue, but this is a minor one, I feel, so that's good. One moment. I just need to get your PowerPoint open. Voila. It's opening. Now.
Great.
Voila. There we go, Russell. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Elin, and thank you very much, Olena, for that very interesting presentation. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the conceptual thinking behind EntreComp. So if we move to the first slide, please, Elin. I want to do three things. The first thing is that I'd like to talk to you about why entrepreneurial competencies for teaching are important. Secondly, I would like to share with you what EntreCompedu offers. And thirdly, I want to just give you an example or two of how this might work in practice, but I'd very much welcome comments from teaching colleagues who are listening. So let's then have a look at the kind of background to this. I think it's worth thinking a little bit about whatever stage we are at in education, whether we are teaching in schools or colleges or universities, what kind of learners do we want to leave our classrooms when they leave us? You know, what is it we're trying to develop? And if we think about when children start schooling, they are by nature naturally curious. They want to find things out. They are inventive and imaginative. And I think that's a good starting point for entrepreneurial education, to build on children's natural curiosity. The picture you can see in the screen, it's not very clear, but you can see the little boy who's been a bit mischievous, but he's putting the burrs on his dad's back. Can you see that? And that reminds me of a story that you may not know, or you may, about George de Mistral, who was the person who discovered eventually Velcro. He was out for a walk in the 1940s in Switzerland, and he saw these burrs of the plant stick to his trousers and to his dog, and he thought, I wonder how that happens. What is it that makes these plants stick to the clothing? He went away and he came up with the idea of a hook and fastener, which became now a multi-million-pound industry of Velcro. But he started his life as a 12-year-old with his first invention of a toy aeroplane. So children are naturally curious and inventive, and that, I think, is our starting point. So let's have a look at the next slide then. So why is entrepreneurial education so important? Well, we hear a lot about 21st century skills. We hear about creative thinking and critical thinking, collaboration and communication. And all of these skills, of course, are very important. I mean, I would add, as a historian, they didn't suddenly appear in the 21st century. They were around in the 20th century, and indeed since the beginning of formal schooling. However, in the fast-changing world we live in, these are really important skills, and we can add to those skills dispositions such as perseverance. And entrepreneurial education allows educators to develop all of these skills and dispositions in interesting contexts. And of course, chief of this is the importance of adding value in what children and educators do. So let's now move on to the next slide, Elin. Okay. Now, if we were to listen, I think Olena mentioned the importance of agency, which essentially is about voice, about having an active say in one's the way we're educated. So if we listen to what pupils have to say, if you were to look at the OECD and their recent research, they have interviewed lots of young people from all over Europe and indeed beyond Europe to find out what their thinking is at this moment about their education. And one of the themes coming through is they want to have the opportunity to try out their ideas, to be innovative. And I think that's worth bearing in mind, because really we want to work with our students. We want to develop that co-learning context and culture, and using and giving them the opportunity is very important in this regard. I think there's a link at the bottom if you wanted to find out more about that particular project. If we now move to the next point, okay. Central to Ontracom Edu is the importance of building expansive mindsets. What we mean by expansive is really having that open-mindedness to try things out, to take risks. Now, I'm a former teacher myself, and I must say, if I first heard of the word entrepreneurial, it would be a barrier to me. It would be something which I'd think, well, that's not really something that's relevant to my context. So what we're trying to say is, being expansive, entrepreneurial education is something which aligns with good pedagogy, which the background to Entrecomp Edu details further. So the next slide then, Elin, will talk a little bit about the importance of what Entrecomp Edu does. It's effectively a bridge between how well teachers are equipped to teach and the impact of their teaching. In other words, how do we know they have made a difference? So in the context of entrepreneurial education, what skills, dispositions, attitudes and values are our young people leaving the classroom with? You know, how willing are they to take risks? How creative are they? To what extent can they collaborate with other people in a sensible and mature manner? These are the kind of building blocks entrepreneurial education is trying to put in place. So if that's the problem, we hope that entrepreneurial education is one possible solution. So if we go to the next slide then, what Entrecomp Edu does, it provides teachers with a framework. But as Olena said, frameworks don't do anything in the sense of changing what teachers and children do. Ultimately, it's not the framework that make a difference. It's the behavioral change among teachers and learners. In other words, it has to make a difference to their lives. It has to be something that inspires them, that wants to motivate them, that builds their own confidence and efficacy to make a difference. So the next slide will give you a bit more detail about EntreComp Edu. You can go on the website if you want to know about these 5 modules. There are 5 broad areas of competence, each of which has a module to support teachers, and each module has various tools, strategies and ideas to apply in the classroom. Now, the reason those names are mentioned is because if you were to trawl around the world and look at the kind of frameworks for teachers starting off their careers, those are very common descriptions. It doesn't matter whether you're training to be a teacher in Finland or Chile or Wales, you will have to learn teaching skills. You will have to develop knowledge and understanding of your subject and how children learn. You have to know how to plan and organize your learning environment. You have to know how to assess, how to make the most of assessment by drawing on self and peer assessment. And you've got to be committed to your own professional development and learning. So we've taken those 5 broad competencies, which align very much to initial teacher education, and then looked at how entrepreneurial competencies fit within that and EntreComp, the framework EntreComp. So the next slide gives you just an example of what that means in practice. So the next slide then, Elin, please. So there are 17 competencies, smaller behavioral demonstrations, if you like, of the skills that we want teachers to develop. So the one example will be in teaching and training. You will see in the picture that Elin's going to show that it's made up of the specific competencies. So for example, most teachers around the world will say, you know, the most important thing we want to try and do is enthuse and engage our young people. If you cannot engage them, learning is not going to happen. Deep learning is not going to happen. You may have some superficial learning, but deep, lasting learning will not occur. So we're saying, start by how do we enthuse and engage our learners? It doesn't matter whether you're teaching kindergarten or high school or university, you've got to know how to engage and enthuse. So that module is made up of a number of competencies, as the other 5 are. Now, underpinning the whole framework are 6 pedagogical principles. Now, any framework should have strong principles. Principles are, if you like, guidelines to how we should teach and how we should instruct. And those are the 6 principles that we have tried to, if you like, the glue that holds everything together. I won't go through them in detail, but you can see they're about applying learning to the real world, about adding value, about collaboration, the importance of reflection. But reflection is not simply musing. The reflection has to have a critical edge. It has to lead to change. It's not simply, you know, reflect on how well I taught. What difference are you making to your teaching in the next occasion? So we've built modules around those 6 principles. Next slide, please, Elin. I'm very conscious of time, folks. So each module then has a set of, if you like, tools and techniques and approaches. One of the questions raised a few minutes ago was, what is the role of project-based learning in entrepreneurial education? Well, you will see in module 3, for example, reference to how you can use project-based learning to develop the skills that we want young people to learn. The other quick point, just before I move on, can we just go back a moment to Elin? I think a very important point, we don't want to sanitize things. You know, education is a controversial, challenging area. And earlier on, we spoke about the importance of coaching and facilitating. And most of the teaching methodologies associated with entrepreneurial learning are what we might describe as inquiry-based approaches, discovery learning, project and problem-based learning. But in EntreComp Edu, we have said, possibly controversially, that actually good teachers use a range of approaches. There is room for direct instruction, that is teaching by telling. And that is because all the research says that makes an impact. And the reality for teachers, it's all well and good for people like me as an academic, but teachers are under huge pressures. They have curriculums to deliver. They have senior leaders looking for outputs in terms of examination results. So we're saying, if you look at the materials to support EntreComp Edu, you have a balance of approaches. There is a time for direct instruction, perhaps to explain health and safety issues. There is time for children to explore through inquiry-based learning. So it is that balance. Okay, the next slide, please, Elin.
We've got about 1 minute left, okay?
Okay, that's fine. 1 minute, all we need. One example of a technique we mentioned, we call it the bar technique from Tony Ryan's work. A very simple thing you can do. You can ask your students, what would happen if we made something bigger? If we added something, or if we replaced something? So in the examples you'll see on the screen, I'm a big cricket lover. So in the early 2000s, Kerry Packer came up with the idea of changing the colour of the ball from brown and red to white, of changing the colour of the kit that the cricketers wore. Immediate impact. And then you can see other examples, the way in which the technique can be applied in the modern age, such as COVID. Changing the colour of a mask, reducing its size, has an entrepreneurial impact. So finally then, the key messages, the final slide. I think there are three key messages I'm trying to get across. Firstly, there's a strong alignment between entrepreneurial education and good teaching. Secondly, that the framework is, that's all it is. It's a framework. It's not a constricting framework. It's an opening framework. There are ideas and suggestions that teachers can work upon. And thirdly, the most important point is that teachers need to work with others. And part of this whole project is to develop collaborative networks, because that really is the way you build capacity in schools and systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russell. That's a really helpful insight into the sort of what comes from the EntreComp Edu framework and how that's being translated into the training experience. Now, there is research going on with this work. Russell will be having a paper coming out in a few months' time, and other research will be forthcoming. So please keep your questions coming. Russell just mentioned networks. Francesco Sendron has just highlighted a question that said he's looking for networks of teacher trainers in this area. So I'm sure we can talk further on that, Francesco, because EntreComp Edu is a network of teachers who are interested in this theme, and perhaps there's also teacher trainers out there within that group who may be interested to find out more about your work and where you're going with teachersrise.eu. Now, next we have, I'll just stop sharing my screen, and we will go back and look at the next section of our short seminar today. I'd like to introduce Paloma Lozano, who is our lead partner in Spain, has been working hard with colleagues across Spain, but also with our colleagues in Chile with the Latin American Caribbean pilots. And she's going to be introducing the teachers that are going to be sharing their experience and giving you a flavor of what is the teacher experience in EntreComp Edu, to understand what people have done and perhaps the impact it's had on them. So over to you, Paloma.
Thank you, Elin. So I will very briefly explain how the EntreComp Edu training course is structured, what it looks like. so that you have an idea of how it is being delivered. And then I will give way to the teachers who are taking the course and can tell us themselves what their experience is and how they are benefiting from the course. I will share my screen now. Okay, can you see? Okay. No. Okay, so the EntreCompedu training course is being delivered through an online platform. It is structured around 6 modules. The first one, module 0, is an introductory module, welcome and orientation. And then the rest of the modules from 1 to 5 are exactly what Russell just mentioned. They come directly from the EntreCompedu Teachers Framework of Professional Competences for Entrepreneurial Education that you can read if you go to EntreCompedu website. And I think our colleagues from EBS just shared a link to this framework in the chat. In the chat, you can look that up. The course is delivered through an innovative social learning environment, which is LookMe. I will explain a bit more about that just now. And it also includes a teacher self-assessment tool, the MTE measurement tool for entrepreneurship education, developed by Lund University in Finland, which is intended to provide a self-assessment at the beginning of the course so that the teachers know where they stand before they take the course, and then they can take that self-assessment at the end of the course to see the evolution that has taken place. And then the course also includes a suite of different learning and reflection tools, some of them developed by Survey Anyplace, interactive tools to facilitate learning.
Paloma, are you having trouble sharing your screen with moving through the slides?
No, I think it works. Do you see the next slide now?
I do not know, but perhaps others do. No, do you want me to share from my computer?
Okay, because I can see it, but maybe if you're not seeing the rest of the slides. Thank you.
They're not moving through.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Okay, I can see that. Okay, so we can go to the next slide now. Thank you. So as I mentioned, the training course is delivered online. It's available in the LookMe platform that you can use either in your computer or downloading the LookMe app in your tablet or smartphone. Next slide, please. So as a participant, as a trainee or a learner in the EntreComp training course, you are invited to 2 different groups. A training group where you have all the training materials and you can interact with your trainer or facilitator, and then an online forum in which you can meet and discuss with the rest of participants in the course. So this is, I think you can see on the screen how it looks like. This is the training, there, thank you. This is the training group. In the training group, you have the training materials. To start with, you have the module guide, which is like a textbook, so the written contents of the module, but then you also have some tasks. activities, examples, depending on the tasks that are posed. So this is an open group to share reflections among the participants, but to guide this discussion, we also propose some tasks, activities, and also new resources. And next slide, please. Yeah, and to reinforce this community that is being created with the participants in the course from different countries, starting on January the 11th, we're also going to organize a series of EntreCompedu Café, led by some of the experts and facilitators leading this course. So you have on the screen the dates. I guess in EntreCompedu website, you will find all the details very soon now, and I encourage you to participate. It will be a series of short cafés, so half an hour more or less sessions to discuss and learn on the different topics proposed. And now we are happy to have here several teachers that are currently taking the course in different countries. Now we're going to hear from teachers from Spain, from North Macedonia, and from Wales. And we are very happy to have you here, and we would like you to tell us in maximum 3 minutes, because we are very short of time now. So how was your experience with the course so far, and what are the main benefits that you feel this course is bringing to you? Shall we start with, I'm seeing Sonia on my screen. Shall we start with Sonia Beutel from Spain, from Andalucía? Thank you, Sonia.
Hola, buenas tardes. ¿Me escuchan? ¿Sí? Perfecto, yo soy Sonia, participo desde España, desde Andalucía, Jaén. Estoy involucrada en educación de dos formas diferentes. Por una parte, trabajo en un centro Guadalinfo, que como bien se ha dicho, lo que quiere es acercar las nuevas tecnologías a partes de la sociedad que todavía sufren una brecha digital. También, de otro modo, es como emprendedora, doy clases por las tardes, algunos días. Aquí tengo ahora mismo un buen grupo. Y os saludo a todos, os doy las gracias por la oportunidad que me habéis dado. Os cuento que mi experiencia en el curso está siendo muy positiva. Estamos aprendiendo muchos conceptos nuevos que de otro modo no habría sido posible. Yo conocía las 8 competencias de educación que actualmente están trabajando en los colegios, pero estas 15 nuevas competencias han sido un descubrimiento para mí. Creo que son muy importantes y que deberían complementarse con las 8 que ya existen, porque hay muchos aspectos que ahora mismo creo que no se le está dando la importancia que tienen. También me gustaría destacar la competencia de creatividad, algo en lo que el curso se está basando y se le está dando una gran relevancia, y creo que es así, que la creatividad es la base de una visión de futuro, de aceptar ideas de todos, de respetar, de tolerancia. Un trabajo en equipo es fundamental. Todo ello nos va a llevar a una mejora de la educación. Y eso es precisamente lo que creo que hoy estamos haciendo todos nosotros, de todos los países que estamos participando, que es aportar nuestras ideas y opiniones para entre todos tener una educación más innovadora y más rica en todos los sentidos. Este curso a mí me está dando esa oportunidad y por eso os doy las gracias.
Muchas gracias, Sonia. Thank you very much. We will have some time for questions at the end. So we can now follow with the rest of the teachers, and then we will have the chance to ask them all some questions. So Daniela from North Macedonia, are you here? I can't see Daniela.
Let me just check. No, we don't seem to have a connection from Daniela. We were wondering if we were going to have an issue. So, but I tell you what, we'll be having more sessions of this, and Daniela will join us back in the next teacher event that we have with EntreCompedu. But perhaps we can move to Tracy and Faith from Davin Primary School.
Please.
Who goes first?
You want to go, or do you want me to start?
You start.
Okay. Well, in Darwin Primary School, we embarked on the EntreComp journey during a period of school closures due to the lockdown with COVID. And I think we were all perhaps a little daunted at the thought of a new, embarking on a new project, particularly online, as previous learning has always been very hands-on, and you're able to put it into practice in your class. But working through the modules and having the time to dedicate to that during lockdown, I think did really help us. And I know I particularly found the modules and the feedback that we were having from Felicity and from others very, very powerful and very important in helping me in move forward with that. And I think initially when I started, I pinned myself in the camp of being not able to cope with the risks and uncertainty and ambiguity, and I was always concerned about having things go the way I perceived them to go, and the way that I wanted things to work. But I think opening my eyes to that, working through the modules, has really helped me to see that the creativity that comes from the learning, and to see the confidence that I've built in now opening up the 15 competencies across my classroom. Working through the modules has really helped me with that. Excuse me. And I think the only thing that we didn't have at the time was, because of school closures, the fact that we couldn't actually put into practice the things we were learning at the time with our children. But I know when we came back to school in September, we were all very eager to put things into place then, and to see how we could use the training as part of our everyday curriculum. And I think speaking to the other members of Foundation Phase, because I teach children aged 4 to 6, and Faith is with the nursery children, and speaking to other educators in our area, we found that the principles, the ethos of EntreComp and the modules is very, very similar, very linked to the ethos of our curriculum too with Foundation Phase. The whole learning through experiences, learning through play, learning through creativity, and developing those skills. So we found it quite interesting to just open up those categories and then look in a different way across our teaching through the Foundation Phase. And I think the way we've taken it at the moment is that we're trying to build a cross-curricular approach. Of course, we've got the new curriculum for Wales on the horizon. So this has really helped us in seeing all of the competencies in a cross-curricular way, and to try and to sort of see that it makes sense to us now. The new curriculum isn't as scary anymore because of the way that we've opened our thinking and the competencies that we have now developed as part of the modules and the training that we've received. I think, Faith, I think you agree with that. I think.
Yes, when I first embarked on the training, I heard entrepreneurial and nursery, and I thought, no, it doesn't work. The two words don't compute, they don't add up. But I gave it a go, and like as the modules progressed, I started to realize that the underlying concepts of early childhood and entrepreneurial learning are very much the same, especially things like creative thinking. I'm very passionate about creative thinking. That idea of children to be able to make new connections with existing knowledge and transferring that knowledge to different situations. One of the best examples I can give you today is I had a 3-year-old little boy that flooded the toilets in the nursery. He discovered if he squished enough wet toilet roll into the sink, he could create a plug. Well, he was very, very happy with this knowledge. He was a genius. He created and invented the plug in one day. Other people not so happy about it. But we then recognize that creative knowledge and give him an outlet in another part of our provision, because he's got to have a safe way of playing out that new knowledge that he's discovered. Things like motivation and perseverance. In our recent EntreComp EDU week that we did, I had children with boxes and boxes of junk, meter-long pieces of string. They stood focused for ages, just threading and rethreading and testing materials. Well, inevitably, the 3-year-old picks the string up by the wrong end and everything clatters to the floor. It's a disaster. But like we say down here, Incy Wincy Spider says we don't give up. You try again, you persevere, you ask your friend to come over and help you. But no, like Tracy said, the training was very refreshing in the way that it was delivered. The modules were really interesting. The content of the tasks were really varied. I looked forward to going on to the new tasks to see what I would find that I could try, or what I could find that I found was either relevant or conceptually the same in early childhood practice. On the whole, I found the training really reaffirming, because the underlying concepts are the same between entrepreneurial learning, early childhood, foundation phase, and the new curriculum for Wales. And I think the end goal is the same. We all want, creative, capable, responsible, children who can think for themselves and see a problem and take action and endeavor to leave the world better than they found it. And I think if our very youngest learners can do that, I think we all can.
Thank you very much, Tracy. It's great to hear you. Now I see Daniela on the screen. So Daniela, welcome. Can you please share your experience from North Macedonia?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me talk, in front of this brilliant audience. So I'll briefly introduce myself. So as you said, my name is Daniela. I come from Skopje, Republic of North Macedonia. I've had quite a long experience in education. I've been in education for more than 20 years so far, actually. And it's been mainly in primary schooling, in primary school education, as an English teacher. Then I also worked as a director of studies in a private language school. And also I've been engaged as an expert associate of the Bureau for Development of Education in the creation of foreign language teaching curricula. During my teaching career so far, I've participated in many projects that included creation of teaching materials. I've tried to engage my students to work in projects outside the classroom, and I hope I was quite successful in that, because we've made and promoted student films, we've created student exhibitions, participated in many cross-cultural student projects. And also, as I mentioned, I have direct experience as an interpreter while running my own business. So I can only say that from everything that I've said so far, has contributed to my deep interest and let's say motivation for the EntreComp edu course. How was my experience? Well, my experience was absolutely positive and productive. And I definitely recommend this course to all proactive teachers interested in developing entrepreneurial competencies through their teaching. The course has brought to my attention the importance of recognition and embracing the features of entrepreneurial education that were already used in my teaching, although I might have not known that, as well as introducing the new ones that stand strongly in line with the entrepreneurial principles, such as creativity that we've listened to the panelists talking about, learning through real world contents, etc. Well, what are the benefits of my participation in this course? The main benefits are the new practices and the approach in my teaching that goes far beyond on how students should start up a business, of course. Here we are talking about an entrepreneurial mindset that is applied from everyday tasks to complex economic environments that involve everyday selling, well, and buying, if we can say so, but not necessarily always a product. It could be an idea, it could be an initiative, it could be consciousness, raising awareness, recognizing and promoting values, and many others. It actually includes all the elements of personal and social development of my students. Other benefits, of course, include the learning about new online tools that have been extremely important in this period of online teaching, as well as sharing these experiences with other colleagues working in the field of education on both a national and international level. Thank you very much. That would be all.
Thank you very much, Daniela, Faith, Tracy, Sonia. I think it's great to listen to you and to see that the four of you are all taking the same course, but then you are implementing it in different and very different scenarios, different countries, different age groups, and you have different backgrounds. So it's very good to see you. As Faith mentioned, this can be used in nursery school and from very early ages. This course was initially designed for teachers for primary, secondary, and vet teaching, but several teachers from university, from nursery, from adult education, and from other very different backgrounds are also taking it and finding it useful, which I think is very, very good. And I see in the chat somebody asked if the course is only in English. No, it's currently available in 6 different languages. And I think with time, probably it will be developed in more. We have a very large community now. And it's open to educators from different education levels and different contexts.
Thank you so much, Paloma, and thank you to all our teachers. Really, it's really great to hear such honest, positive feedback from you. It's truly wonderful. And I think it's interesting to note we got different levels, as Paloma said. Davin Primary, every single teacher and teaching assistant in the school did the course. And so, you know, Davin Primary, we've actually got a plaque to say, you know, you are the first EntreCompedu pioneer school. And we're so pleased that, because it's kind of given us an idea of where we take this and where we evolve the EntreCompedu training program. So, you know, for all of our teachers, we really appreciate your feedback, because all of our teachers on this course are EntreCompedu pioneers. You are supporting us. We hope to support you through this training program, but you're supporting us to refine the content and improve it going forward, because as Paloma says, and as all of our partners say, this is not something that will stop. It's a 3-year project funded by the European Union, but we will find a way of evolving this, blending it into new projects, new initiatives, in order to be able to take it forward and implement it and blend it with the wider EntreComp community, which is building all the time. There's interest all over the world for this work. Now, do we have any questions? We have a few minutes left. We're about to run out of time, but we still have like a few minutes left for questions. So if anybody has some, please do say. It's great to see people. Susanna's come in from North Macedonia. We've got Sonia's here also. Jan Litrotta, who's already on the course, is here and asking questions. Ed is here too, based in Barcelona. Condis, who is in France right now. So any other questions coming through? Okay, we have a question from Pablo Zamora, who's in Chile. I wanted to, we've had a couple of questions I actually want to go back to. So how does within the Chilean context, they're working with Latin America and the Caribbean, how does the more holistic and comprehensive training from EntreComp clearly differentiate itself from perhaps that business creation focus that you see most commonly, you know, maybe in North America, for example? There's a question from Pablo on how does EntreComp differentiate itself with this from its business creation focus? Who would like to answer that from one of our speakers? Any offers? Put your hand up. I can see you all. Is that a hand, Olena?
Yeah, it could be.
Okay, I'll hand over to you.
Actually, I think we have to distinguish between two things. To develop key competence and entrepreneurship key competence, we don't start with the entrepreneurship course, but we start with a more conceptual approach to focus on skills and attitudes rather than on knowledge. Knowledge is still important, but skills and attitude gets more emphasis. So it's more developing certain type of behavior, certain type of attitude, certain mindset, and certain culture of a personal level, at the level of a group, community, school, any other organization, etc. So the objective of such course, or rather, if it's an integrated element of multidisciplinary approach, then we're still dealing with development of certain learning outcomes that are linked to key competencies. So the objective is to develop the learning outcomes for key competencies. When we are talking about entrepreneurship course for business creation, this is a course which is, with the aim of which is to develop occupation-related skills, knowledge, and attitude that are related to creation of business. So the purpose is slightly different. It is oriented at enabling the person to enter into a labor market with certain capacities, allowing to start self-employment or entrepreneurship. And I think for vocational and higher education institutions, for any other training courses that are aiming at preparing for this kind of occupation, self-employment or entrepreneurship, these are vital courses, and they can go in parallel with lifelong or periodical support to the development of key competence. So I would say that for vocational schools, for higher education schools, for upper secondary level of general secondary schools, it's very important to have both development of key competences, including entrepreneurship, and preparation for possible self-employment, and plus career guidance that could orient learners to select other types of career, not only wage employment, but also self-employment and entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Olena. And absolutely, that idea of value creation for others is so important in EntreComp, and that very much comes through in EntreComp Edu. Now, any more questions coming through? There's lots of saying thank you to Olena for that, from Susanna, from Tatiana. Lots of people asking how you can register. If you go to www.entrecompedu.eu, I think there are probably enough links now in the chat for you to find your way there. Any last questions that we have that people would like to ask, if you could put them into the chat. Okay, great. We've got one from Shima Baccarat. What in your opinion, are the key competencies for teachers, schools and HEIs if they are different? Have we got any offers for that, to answer that question? Perhaps I might direct that over to Russel.
Yes.
So what's your opinion on the key competencies for teachers, and is there a difference between schools and higher education?
Can you hear me? Yeah, sorry, I didn't know whether you hear me. I think for me, the most important thing for teachers, irrespective of whether they're teaching, as we heard from our Devon colleagues, in the early years, or whether they are teaching in university, is how do you engage learners? How do you actually get them to learn? Not how you teach. How do they learn? What is learn? Learning is essentially a change, a deep-seated change in behavior. So for me, the most important element is that through EntreComp Edu, we discuss the importance of engagement, active engagement, and that how we know that we're making a difference in our teaching. Not, what evidence is this? So how do we gather the evidence to show our impact? That for me is the overriding consideration, because at the end of the day, that's the main thing at the moment. How do we know we're making a difference as teachers? And of course, the other thing I would add to that, Elin, is that, entrepreneurial education is a much broader brush in the way we've described it than business-centered entrepreneurship. In other words, whether you're teaching history, you're teaching geography, you're teaching project-based learning, whatever approach, whatever subject you're teaching, entrepreneurial concepts are transversal in that sense.
Thank you, Russell. Would any of our teachers like to add anything to that? Faith, if you unmute yourself, and then I'll come to you, Olena, because I know you wanted to add something too.
No, I think that's a fair point. I mean, that was the same thought I had going into the training, is that entrepreneurial and nursery just the concepts didn't marry up. but those underlying concepts of creativity and perseverance and resilience those underpin everything else. We've got to have those skills at the bottom moving forward. It doesn't have to do with money. My nursery children can still display those entrepreneurial competencies, but they're not making money or making businesses, you know, but those competencies are still there. They're small because they're only just starting, but they're still there.
I do sometimes think that, you know, early years can be quite creative. I see my own 6-year-olds and the way they think about things, it's cool and quirky. Olena, if you wanted to add to that. Thank you, Faith.
Just very small point. It's related to the EntreComp itself. Because to answer this question, hello Shima, by the way. Hi, Shima Barakat. I wanted to say that it's related to the progression model that is underpinning the EntreComp. Because if you are dealing with learners who are at school, this is a certain age group. If you're dealing with learners in higher education, this is another age group. So logically, on the EntreComp progression model, the learners at higher education have to be at higher level, so they have to learn other level of competences vis-a-vis EntreComp. So the teacher has to prepare to tune the pedagogical approaches to this age group and also to certain levels of EntreComp, which means that the teachers of higher education have to possess these competences themselves.
Thank you very much. Now, we have come to the end of this session. I think this has been brilliant, to be honest, from all of our speakers. And I think it's shown us that there is a real appetite for this topic. There's an appetite for this kind of training, training for teachers to help them to explore how they already are or how they could enhance how they're developing entrepreneurial learning for their learners in their teaching in any context. Also the relevance of that across learning levels. We have early years with us, we have colleagues from adult education here, we have higher education, we have schools, we have youth workers also in our attendee list. So I think this broad understanding is really, it's really important, and it's very interesting for us to see, because the course itself, as Russell would say, was kind of designed for the sort of 9 to 19-year-old, but it goes beyond that. The relevance of this, we find, is going beyond that. Thank you to everybody, all of our speakers, our teachers, our organisations who are leading this work, both in Wales, to Kath and all of our partners in the EntreCompedu project funded by the Erasmus Plus programme, and to our colleagues in Chile who are supporting and facilitating those 20 teachers from across Latin America and the Caribbean who are exploring this with the potential to rolling out further in those regions. To Russell for being really supportive, bringing his expertise to this work through his collaboration with the EntreCompedu project, and to everybody really who is part of this program, of this community, but also to all of our participants, because we've got a lot of people online today, and I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled. This is something that I feel is so important. These are life skills. Entrepreneurial learning is the opportunity to build life skills, to build the educational experience, the learning experience that young people need to take and understand their potential, to build that understanding of what they are able to achieve, the change they can create in their lives, in the world around them. That's why I get excited about this. And so thank you for all our participants. Thank you to all our future participants. We will be opening up more places because we have more capacity from January, because we see that there is a desire for that, and there will be further programs for this. So on behalf of all of the team, thanks for being with us, both here in Zoom and also on Facebook. The registration links are out there. We look forward to welcoming you onto the course or back to one of these events. And if you're on the course, we look forward to welcoming you into our EntreCompedu cafes every Tuesday at 4 from the 11th of January. Thank you very much. I'm going to close this and say, have a great festive season. I hope you have some time off in the various celebrations there are around the world to relax a little bit. Relaxed cognition. Take a seat, think about life, reflect, and let's think 2021 has got to be a better year than 2020. It's been a tough one, but we've got through it. And thank you to everybody who's, I'm going to get emotional. Everybody have a great festive season. Thank you so much.
Hi, thanks a lot. Thank you.
And thank you, Elin, for all the coordination as well